Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pink and Channels. I'm Connor Southwell, joined by Football London's Chris Davison to talk about Norwich City's deadline day signing Marquinhos, who signed on loan for the remainder of the Championship season from Premier League pace setters Arsenal. Chris, now before we get going, I thought I'd mention that even though you work for Football London and you're obviously heavily involved in Arsenal, and I'm sure people will have seen you on social media, you're actually Norfolk based, aren't you? Which is really nice. So this must be just on a personal level, it must be really nice to see a player go from Arsenal to Norwich, or maybe not. I don't know.
No, it is. It is. Yeah, as you say, born and raised in and around Norwich, supporting Arsenal because of family and carrying on that legacy. But obviously Norwich is a close place to my heart. It's obviously it is my local team, and I like to always see them do well. Obviously, seeing how they get on, etc. So yeah, it's quite cool actually to see an Arsenal player make the move to City. And obviously we'll dive deeper into Marquinhos in a moment, but I'm really looking forward to seeing how he gets on.
Yeah, I'm sure our viewers will be and listeners will be really glad to hear the familiarity of the Norfolk twang in your voice, which is really great. Talk to us about Marquinhos then. I mean, what on the surface of it, what do you make of this move? Because it feels like one that probably Norwich City fans are looking at with quite a bit of excitement.
Yeah, and they should be excited. I think this is a really smart piece of business from Norwich and Arsenal looking at it. Marquinhos was brought in the summer from Sao Paulo. Sporting director Edu very heavily involved in that transfer, and it was reported in Brazil at the time that it was part of more of a business strategy to deepen the connections between Arsenal and Sao Paulo for some of their sort of emerging talents, if you like, now and moving forward. But we've actually seen more of Marquinhos than we probably initially anticipated, to be honest. And that's because Arsenal were on the lookout for another winger in the summer. You probably remember the links to Rafinha, Pedro Neto. Obviously, those moves didn't happen in the end. So then the decision was taken to stick with Marquinhos rather than sending him out on loan straight away to continue his development. So, yeah, Marquinhos has been pretty much in and around the Arsenal first team since the summer, be it in training or making the bench. He has got one senior goal and one senior assist to his name. That came in the Europa League against FC Zurich, if I remember correctly. A lovely goal and a lovely assist. I think it was to provide Eddie Nketiah with a header in the second half. He is a player that perhaps because of the lack of game time in recent months is lacking a little bit of confidence. But if David Wagner can find that spark, then he will be a joy to watch. I'm certain of it. He loves to run at defenders, like I say, maybe perhaps missing that confidence to take on people straight away. But with the more opportunities he gets, you will start to see that in him. Confident on the ball, got a brilliant left foot. As I mentioned a moment ago, got a very good cross on him as well. And a dangerous eye for goal, not whether it be at Arsenal at first team level or in the under 21s, previous at Sao Paulo as well. You look at some of the goals he scored, very strong left foot. He likes to cut in from the right hand side, have a pop at goal. Energetic again. You often associate that with these young Brazilian players anyway. They got a lot of energy, work really hard with and without the ball, and I'm sure David Wagner will like that. Some of that has obviously been integrated from Arteta as well. He's a very demanding manager, likes his players to work hard, in and out of possession, close down the opposition as well. And Marquinhos does all of those things. He always is quite eager to win the ball back. So there's a lot to like. There's a lot of potential there, Connor. Although I would just reiterate, he is still young, he is still raw. So there's going to be times where he makes mistakes or he doesn't do something you want him to because he's obviously still learning, he's still developing. But yeah, for Arsenal, and I think for a lot of Arsenal fans, myself included, it came to the point where he wasn't quite ready to be a regular under Arteta in the first team squad, but he was simply too good for the under 21s. I think he made five or six appearances, scored a few goals, managed to provide a few assists there in the under 21 academy as well. So too good, like I say, for the first team level at Arsenal, but too good to not quite ready to make that step up to the Arsenal first team, but too good to be in and around the under-21s. It would have been pretty much a waste, really, to keep him at the club. Obviously, after Arsenal brought in Leandro Trossard as well, so his chances instantly sort of diminished of sort of getting any regular minutes in an Arsenal shirt this season. So a lot to like, but I'd say because of the lack of game time in recent months, City fans maybe just need to be a little bit patient to begin with.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you said there. You use words like energetic, which I think a lot of people associate with a David Wagner side. You spoke about maybe the technical quality that he has. It's interesting what you said there about maybe being in that halfway house between the first team and the under-21s. I think we probably could all list players that maybe have got stuck in that place where clubs haven't been quite brave enough to send them out on loan, and so they haven't quite been able to make that breakthrough, but they've kind of been stuck. So Arsenal deserve praise for that. But yeah, I mean, in terms of him, I mean, he said on a club video that he likes to play on the right. It's interesting that he's left-footed. You would expect him to be almost one of these kind of inverted wingers, then, would you, in terms of players that like to come inside? I think, judging on kind of the early signs of David Wagner's side, he likes to play with those type of players. So it does feel like quite a good match if that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, he's one of those players that likes to cut in onto his left foot to either get a shot away or to sort of progress play further into the opposition half, to the 18-yard box, to put in a cross, as he has done quite a few times in an Arsenal shirt. But I think there is times at Sao Paulo as well, wasn't there, where he did play on the left-hand side, and he can do that if needs be. So versatile, willing to do whatever the manager says. He has got a very good attitude from what we've seen and heard from him at the Gunners as well. So no reason at all why he can't sort of adapt to different scenarios, and certainly an option that will give David Wagner plenty of options sort of on the flanks.
Yeah, it is really interesting. I don't know how much you're aware. You might be, you might not be at all. Both are fine, but Norwich have really stepped up their South American scout network. Obviously, they signed Gabriel Sara, who was formerly a teammate of Marquinhos at Sao Paulo, Marcelino Nunez as well. I mean, how much of a possibility do you think it is that he is a player that Norwich City would have been aware of before he made that step to Arsenal? It seems quite likely, doesn't it?
It does, and obviously, as you said there, I am familiar with Norwich's sort of recent recruitment strategy in terms of looking at the South American market a bit more due to the changes that Brexit brought, of course. And I'm sure, when Norwich were looking at Gabriel Sara, they would have been aware of Marquinhos because he was one of the emerging talents at that time, just before Sara made that move to Carrow Road. So I'm sure that their scouting department is aware of Marquinhos, and that is an added bonus, isn't it, to City? They will be already familiar with some of his abilities, his skills, what he'll offer. And yeah, the fact that he has a former teammate and a Brazilian friend there at the club will be very, very helpful. You would think in terms of him adapting to Norwich, the style of play, his new surroundings, because it's not difficult for any player making that move to a new country, but especially from South America to England, you have the changes in weather and the demands of football and everything that comes with it. It's not easy, but it's worked out well. The fact that he's had these 6 months to sort of adapt at Arsenal, and he's had a few Brazilian players around him there as well. So that's made him quite comfortable, and it's nice that he'll also have that with Gabriel Sara at Norwich. And yeah, you would think it will ease his nerves a little bit, enable, obviously, that gives him that added connection between him and the manager as well. If he sort of uses Salah as an interpreter or whatever, I don't know what's going to happen there. I know Marquinhos has been trying to learn as much English as possible. He always knew that was going to be one of the things he had to adapt to, of course, because when he joined Arsenal, in his mind, he was going to be here for many years ahead. He's a young prospect. He has a bright future ahead of him. And based on what we've seen, what the club has seen so far, there's no reason why he actually can't come back to Arsenal and have an important role to fill moving forward. So he knows learning the English language is going to be really important for him and his development moving forwards. But yeah, like you say, it's an added bonus to have Sara there with him.
Yes, it's interesting what you say about adaptation, because I think Norwich fans have seen Gabriel Sara maybe take a little bit of time in that opening 6 months to really adjust to it, and it feels like everyone's beginning to see now him really step up and improve. So that's an interesting point that you make on Marquinhos. I mean, how do you think how do you think he'll be able to adapt to the Championship? Because, and he said this in his first interview as a Norwich City player, it's a completely different, well, level certainly, but also style. It is much more physical. The pitches aren't as great. Not everything's pristine as it would have been perhaps in his experiences so far. How do you see him kind of handling the Championship and that particular environment?
Well, I personally don't think it's something City fans should be worried about, because I remember when Marquinhos joined, myself, a lot of the Arsenal fans were impressed with his physique. He's actually quite strong. He works a lot on his fitness, on his body. I think that he's only continued to do that since arriving in England, because we know the physicalities that come with the football. So I wouldn't be concerned by that. I think he'll adapt in terms of the physicality of the Championship, the style of play, quite well, and quite quickly. And obviously, as I mentioned a moment ago, the fact that he has already been in England for 6 months and adapting to the football, to the style, again, will only sort of be an added bonus in that. So I don't see any problems there, to be honest, Connor, in terms of the physicality, or the physical side of things. I think he'll do quite well. Like I say, the only concern or the only obvious weaknesses are the fact that he is still raw, and there's going to be aspects of his game. Probably one of the main things at the moment is confidence, because, like I say, hasn't been playing that much. But then his decision making, his sort of decision making in front of goal, in particular, certain times to make the pass, all the timings and the decision making side of things as well. He can definitely improve on that, but that comes with game time. That comes with experience, and sometimes you need to make those mistakes to actually become better for it. That is how it tends to work with young footballers. So yeah, I think no concerns in terms of the physicality. He is quite strong. Like I say, he looks after his body really well. He's been, despite the lack of game time at Arsenal, and as I touched on a moment ago, there's never been any sort of concerns about his attitude and his desire to sort of work hard. He does work hard, and he's always giving 110% in training. I think some of the Arsenal players, and even Arteta himself, has come out and said that it's been good to see how he's developed, and he's a very hungry young lad. He wants to impress. He wants to push forward and do everything he can to obviously secure that spot in the Arsenal first team in the future. So I only see a player that's going to go to Norwich to try and prove a point. Not just to Arteta and to Arsenal fans, but those who maybe dealt with him at the beginning, to think, oh well, we're getting this guy in £3 million. He's not going to have sort of any major part to play in Arsenal moving forwards. You think of the talent we've already got on the flanks: Emile Smith-Rowe, Gabriel Martinelli, Bukayo Saka, now Leandro Trossard. It's not going to be easy for him to stamp down that place in Arsenal moving forward in the first team. But this is why I think he's going to go to Carrow Road, go to Norwich, and really prove a point to a lot of people, and just do everything he can to impress and to, like I say, make a point. I think it could work out really, really well for both Norwich and Arsenal.
Yeah, that will be music to the ears of a lot of Norwich City fans, what you've just said there. I mean, in terms of Mikel Arteta, it's interesting because earlier on you said Edu was maybe really influential in bringing him to Arsenal. What has Mikel Arteta said about him publicly, but also what are his kind of thoughts on him as a player privately? I guess the fact he's been in and around the first team squad for the majority of the season probably suggests that he's someone that he really highly rates.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, not too much has been said about him because of the lack of game time and the lack of opportunities. But I remember him being asked some questions about his performance in the Europa League when he did score and get that assist on his debut. And obviously, as you can imagine, full of praise, and really encouraging comments from Arteta. I think, it's important to remember that Arteta's very sort of straightforward in the sense that he knows, or he did know, that Marquinhos wasn't sort of going to set the world alight at Arsenal. He's going to be a player that needed time to adapt. You weren't going to sort of see results from him straight away. And Arteta is very protective over his young players. So he was never going to sort of pile any unnecessary pressure on top of him. Obviously in the Europa League, off the bench in a few times in the Premier League, Marquinhos maybe comes on for the last 5 minutes. So there's not really been, like I say, any pressure on him to, sort of set the world alight at Arsenal, like I said. But when he has been asked about Marquinhos and his sort of contribution, even though it has been very small, he's been, like I say, encouraging, full of praise for him. Excited, I would say, about how he will and how he can develop. Arteta knows there is a lot of potential and a lot of talent to work with there. But again, not just Arteta, but Edu as well, and other people, coaches around the club, were very wary of holding back his development this month. It's very easy, isn't it? He's a young player. He's not really going to kick up a fuss. He's just joined. If he's happy to be on the bench, he's happy to be on the bench. That works for us. But actually, there was an acceptance that Arsenal had to strengthen in the wide areas this window, and they've obviously done that with Trossard. But B, we would only be holding back Marquinhos' development should he stay, and should we obviously not really do anything else in the window. So I think Arteta and Edu in particular, being Brazilian and obviously working hard to bring Marquinhos into the club, they'll be relieved and they'll be happy to have obviously sorted this loan move for Marquinhos. But obviously a sense of relief as well, that they know they're not going to be holding back his development. He's going to hopefully get plenty of game time at City. And you think obviously Arsenal and their wide players at the moment, very youthful, got many years ahead of them. But maybe after a couple of loans out, Marquinhos could be ready to come straight back in for someone like Trossard, who is obviously 28 now. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on here at City. You would imagine if he does really well. Obviously, Connor, you can have your say in this. You never rule out Marquinhos, coming back to Norwich, continuing to develop, or going elsewhere on loan in the future. I certainly, wouldn't bet against that happening. But yeah, I think if like I said earlier at the start, if David Wagner can find that confidence, find that spark that we all know, certainly on the Arsenal side, Marquinhos has, then he could be a really, really, really important, strong addition to Norwich's season. And, you could obviously help Arsenal as well in the fact that you could develop him even further. So he has a chance of sort of being involved in Arsenal's season or Arsenal's plans next season.
Yeah, it certainly feels like a win-win for all parties, doesn't it? When you look at all of the three, that Norwich City, if they can get a bit of creativity into their side, which is something that they've lacked at points so far this season, then that's a win for them. If Marquinhos can develop, then that's a win for him and Arsenal. And yeah, what the future holds beyond that may well obviously depend on Norwich City, what league they're playing football in next season. But let's be positive and say they're able to get promotion to the Premier League, and he plays a major part in that between now and the end of the season. Then why would it not make sense for him to spend another season or 6 months at Norwich City and assess where everyone is after that? But let's not get carried away and ahead of ourselves. Final question then, Chris, because you've been brilliant with your insight today on what is a very, very busy day. It will be, I think, February the 1st when people see this, but we're actually recording this deep into deadline day, so I appreciate you giving up your time. Just finally, I mean, what will Arsenal be looking for from this loan in terms of him? How does it work when a player goes on loan? They have a loans manager, obviously, but is it a case of setting targets? Do they let players have freedom? Do they monitor them? What is it like when a player goes out on loan, and what will Marquinhos get in terms of support from his parent club?
Well, Arsenal monitor all of their loanees very, very closely, and we haven't actually been afraid to recall players if they aren't getting sufficient game time. I think we've seen it recently with Brooke Norton-Cuffy. Obviously, he's gone to Coventry now, played against you not so long ago. He was originally elsewhere, wasn't playing much, and he is a player that, again, like Marquinhos, could have a real chance of being involved in the Arsenal first team moving forward. So we didn't want to take any risks with that. We recalled him immediately, saw a new loan move for him. So Marquinhos will be very, very closely monitored, especially that being he has already been involved with the Arsenal first team, and like I've mentioned, he is very, very highly rated, and there is a chance for him, if he develops well and if he continues on the right path, for him to be involved under Mikel Arteta in the years ahead. So there'll be targets, of course. I think obviously for any young player heading out on loan, you just want them to get minutes under the belt, not only for their development, but as I've mentioned with Marquinhos in particular, for their confidence. And you often see, once that player has regained their confidence, once they've adapted to their new club and their new surroundings, that's when you start to see the best come out of them. And I think hopefully in the coming weeks, we'll see that with Marquinhos. So obviously, I mentioned Edu quite a bit in this. He knows Marquinhos very well. He knows his family very well. They all spoke quite often when Marquinhos made the summer switch to North London. So Edu will be keeping in touch with Marquinhos and his family, I'm sure, and making sure he's all right. He's got everything that he needs. So in terms of the support, Arsenal will be there, Edu in particular, and yeah, I just obviously as an Arsenal fan myself, I just want to see Marquinhos offer what we know he can offer. We haven't obviously seen it too much because of the quality ahead of him at Arsenal, but based on what we've seen over the last 6 months, there's a lot to like. And I just think if he finds that confidence and if he gets regular minutes under his belt, that is when you'll start to see his qualities emerge. Like I say, the ability to take on his man, the hard working, he can score goals, provide assists. He can be a real threat, and he's proven that already at Arsenal, whether that's at the first team or the under-21s, and I've got absolutely no doubt he can continue that at Norwich. Obviously, if he's got the service around him as well, Norwich has sort of hit the ground running under Wagner, and that's great to see. I think that's probably something Arsenal did consider. Maybe if Dean Smith was still in charge and things were still sort of heading in the wrong direction, this move maybe never would have happened, because Arsenal would have looked at that and thought, no, maybe that's not the right fit for Marquinhos. But now Wagner's come in. He obviously, as you've said, Connor, likes his players to work hard, aggressive with and without the ball, attacking-minded football. It is perfect for Marquinhos, and yeah, I think it's a perfect fit. I think it's a really, really sensible deal for all parties, and yeah, just want to see him get that regular game time, and yeah, remind everyone what he can offer.
He'll be looked after in Norfolk, Chris. Don't you worry about. As you know, he will be looked after here. Thank you very much for your insight. We'll make sure we leave all of Chris's links to his social media and all of his work down below. You can check him out. There's some brilliant stuff around Arsenal. So do check that out if you're that way inclined. And Chris, thank you for joining us today. Thank you all very much for watching. It's going to be really interesting to see whether Marquinhos. Well, I would imagine he will feature on Saturday, but in what form he features on Saturday as Norwich City welcome Burnley to Carrow. Big game, that feels like, in a big test in early on in David Wagner's reign. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you again very, very soon.